So I thought we could do a spot of agility training. I am not any kind of qualified agility coach or anything like that. I used to run a marketing agency and I sold my half of it nearly 5 years ago now. And I went from having a team of people to do stuff to not wanting to do that again, wanting to build a collaboration agency. So every project I worked on, every business I worked with needed something different. So what I wanted to do was to bring together teams with specialist skills to work on projects together. And I realised that I needed a really strong methodology to manage those projects if it was going to work and I was going to get the best out of everyone. And it was very obvious that Agile was the way to do it. So I went on a practitioner's course and every project I run now, I run Agile. Yeah, I do it, but I'm not qualified to teach it. So take this as it comes. Has everyone heard of Agile, other than Hugh? Is it a new thing? I'll put a definition up there. It's become the sexy thing because of this startup. All of a sudden, the words like, you don't start a business anymore, you are a startup, and then it became hyphenated, and now it's become all one word, and it's a startup, and it's really cool. And lean practices in startups, a lot of it's come over from the States, are very, very popular. And it's, when I used to run a marketing agency and we used to do a lot of work for the public sector, there was a technique of managing projects called waterfall. So basically at the beginning of the project, you'd write reams of documentation about what the site or what the product needed to do, and you would bloody deliver against it because we've spent 6 months speccing this out, so we are not going to deviate, we are going to build it. And clearly in a changing world that's changing increasingly quickly, that doesn't work. So Agile methodology is an attempt to allow people with limited resources and critically limited time and limited budget to deliver projects really, really effectively. And the reason I think it's useful when we're running businesses is because, you know, Agile with a capital A means something specific, but this is what we face as a business. It's an obstacle course. Everything, you know, we're people with a usually quite either a very specific technical skill set or a general skill set, yet we're expected as people running businesses to be getting over all sorts of hurdles. Unfortunately, unlike an agility course, it's not necessarily all set out so we can see it. We have to deal with them as they throw at us, but it's really, really tough. So Agile project management, and it is project management, it's about breaking the world, the universe, your business into projects, is a way of dealing with lots of different requirements with limited resources. And fundamentally, it's about making life simpler. So as a great man once said, there are incredible things that you can achieve if you can get things to a level of simplicity. It frees our mind up, it makes us feel more comfortable, and it allows us to operate to the best of our ability. And for me, this simplicity of thinking and having clear parameters is a really important part of Agile. I'm going to take us through some of the core principles of Agile, and then Agile is like an arsenal of all sorts of different tools and techniques that you can do to apply these principles that we'll go through. I've picked the three that I think are the most key, the three that if you don't do anything else under Agile, these three, or at least a couple of them, should be really useful to you. We touched before this idea of being a non-technical person or a non-developer, commissioning people to do some kind of technical work. Is that something that resonates with many of you, yeah? Okay, well let's use this. We'll go through some principles and then we can either take one of yours or we can make up a project and we can see how as a non-technical person we can use Agile to manage a technical team because it works beautifully. So Agile is, I hate people that read slides, but I'm going to be one of those people. It's a methodology that aims to deliver projects to the required level of quality, to do so on time, on budget, and critically with the features that are needed to deliver against the business case. Now there's some important stuff in this. It's a methodology to deliver projects. So you don't run your business via Agile. Well, you can run your business via Agile by breaking things down into discrete projects, because projects have a beginning, middle, and end, and there's a clear purpose to them. It makes it much easier. And like I say, some of the techniques we'll do, you can manage Christmas in this. If you've got a complicated family, and make it a project and manage it Agile, your life will be much easier. Quality, time, budget, and features, as we'll see, are the four. You can't manage everything in the universe, but every project has a deadline. It's got a budget, usually. It's got features. It's got things it needs to do, and you can manage those things. Those are the four things you manage under Agile. And critically, every project is structured against a business case. The first stage of Agile is project initiation. It's the decision, it's someone that says, yes, let's do this thing. But before you ever say, yes, let's do this thing, there's got to be a clear reason, a clear business case. And again, these are things sometimes that are forgotten when people start talking about sprints and using Scrum and all of this fancy stuff. The principles are really important. And we're going to go into all of those things. Whenever I have worked in an environment and we have implemented Agile, whenever it goes wrong, it's rarely because the techniques are badly applied, it's because some of the principles fail. So there are 9, I think, 2, 4, 6, 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. I thought there were 9, maybe I've missed one. There's some basic principles of Agile, which if you don't get right, you will never effectively implement the techniques, if that makes sense. And these principles are: you should always focus on the business need. So a project is a feature of a business. It is there to deliver something that your business needs. If you're Moscowing family events, then it's what the family needs. It's not about your agenda. It's very much, I remember someone very wise once said to me that when you run a business, that business is its own standalone legal entity and you are the guardian of it. It is not one and you and the same. And when it's your own small business, that can get clouded and it can be really difficult. So it's about identifying and respecting the business as an entity and the project as a feature of the business. Core and fundamental and above all else in Agile is the demand to deliver on time. Agile assumes that it's better to finish a job on time, not quite done to the level that you wanted, but finishing it on time. That's the most important thing above everything else. And so far in the 5 years I've been practicing it, I believe that that is true. Collaboration, the ability to collaborate in Agile, is critical. Agile does not demand, suggest or imply that you document absolutely everything. Waterfall, everything's written down, everything's nailed down, everyone is accountable. With Agile, it's lighter, it works on a trust basis. We collaborate to work together, we communicate well, therefore we don't need to document everything. The fourth element down is you never compromise on quality. I'm going to come back to quality in a moment because quality is the feature, one of the 4 variables, the features of Agile that's often forgotten, and again it can cause hiccups later. Typical example, I'm the business owner, I want to build a website, I want it to be absolutely awesome, as good as apple.com, but I want it next Tuesday. That level of quality is not deliverable in the time. There has to be a discussion about what quality means. That's a really hard discussion. The next step down is you build incrementally from firm foundations. Some of the stuff we were talking about on the conversation stuff rings true with this. This idea of firm foundations of, you know, measure twice, cut once, of really thinking things through and being clear about what the business case is, what you want. That's really important of Agile. Again, a misconception of Agile is it's just fly by the pants. It's cool and we'll just get stuff done together and we'll collaborate and communicate. It's not. Firm foundations, you've got to have a very clear business case. And from that business case, you develop incrementally. So you don't then race to the finish, you stop, check back, you work in what we call sprints or time boxes. So we do a little bit, are we all right, are we good? Yeah, okay, right, next. Are we good? Right, yeah, done what we want, next. And each of those time boxes, again, has a deadline, and meeting those deadlines is key. Develop iteratively is the same thing. I'm not sure why they list them twice. Communicate continuously and clearly, because we're not documenting everything and we're not, we're not racing to the end. We've got to communicate clearly. So stop, are we all on the same page? Are we doing the right things? Do we need to change? No, great, move. So clear, open communication is key. And then finally, demonstrate control. Again, all of Agile is about my interpretation of it. It makes my life easier. If I am managing a project with Agile, I know that the next deadline is usually only a couple of weeks away. How much can, tempting fate, how much can go wrong in 2 weeks? Far less than can in a year. It's about, I know what needs to be done because I've thought it through. I've got a clear business case. Everyone's working against clear features. We know when the deadline is. I feel in control. And again, whether it's placebo, I don't know. So far it works, so I'm thinking not. But it's about demonstrating control. And again, that's a perception of Agile that is often missed. It's not. It seems to be just cool and funky, and we go and we collaborate. It's not. It's all about control. And for those of us running businesses, you're probably going to be running 4 or 5 projects at any one go. No, we don't have the luxury of running one. So that sense of control is a big benefit to stress management and control. And again, that ability to therefore operate too often. Nothing rocket science in there, but they're key. And honestly, when things go wrong, it's not because the techniques I'm going to go through go wrong. It's because people didn't speak properly, or they missed a deadline, or there wasn't a conversation about quality and one person thought it was going to be all bells and whistles and another person knew that was impossible but didn't say so. So it's these principles that can go wrong. So what have you got to manage? I mentioned this earlier. This is what Agile means. This is what you break every project down under Agile. There is a time within which to deliver it, so many days by a certain deadline. There is a cost, and normally for small businesses, neither of those things are variable. Can't suddenly, project is rarely made better by doubling the budget. There is a quality, the project must be delivered to a certain level of quality, and there are features. Now, in Agile, probably the main thing, fundamental principle to get your head around is Agile assumes that all the things in green are set. They're agreed at the beginning of the project, and after that point, they do not change. So they assume that a deadline is set, and that deadline is king. They assume you've got a certain amount of money to do this, and they assume that the quality is agreed from the outset. So if we take the example of being non-technical people, procuring an app, for example, it's all new, for whatever reason we decide we want an app. We need it launched by a specific date, we've got 5k to do it, and we need it. Now, this is where it's really interesting, especially when you run Agile in a client-supplier relationship. The client's perception of quality and the supplier's perception of quality will be very, very different. I'm non-technical, I want this thing to be awesome, I want it to work as well as my Facebook app and my Twitter app and all the apps that I'm used to be introducing, but I've only got 5k. So doing an app of that quality that's produced by a company with 500 developers working on it 24/7 is never going to happen. So it's up to the supplier to communicate that and to collaborate and have a conversation so you agree a level of quality, quality being its ability to deliver against the business case and the feature. So its ability to deliver, not how shiny it is, it's about its ability to deliver. So when you're developing your first version, your minimum viable product, set your quality level down. It's what it needs to do. It's the bare minimum. So if you are developing music app, so what's the main purpose of that app? What does it do for your main user? It helps them publish their song. It helps them publish their first track. So that's what it needs to do. It doesn't need to do that in the most elegant, in the first version. It doesn't need to allow them to share it with Facebook and social. If that's the key, and you're saying to someone, this is the level of quality is set by doing the bare minimum needed to do its job. So don't think of quality as shininess, glossiness, thinking about its ability to get the job done. That's what quality is. And you can have a real conversation in a team to figure out the quality of this project. What do we want it to do? Pick some examples so you can, everyone's on the same page. But that process of having a discussion and setting quality is the hardest thing. Setting budget and time is dead easy. Setting quality is a hard one, and it's different for every project. But if you are commissioning or partnering on something that you don't have very much knowledge about, then you've got to have the conversation and get to a place where you both agree on what the quality level is. And that, again, especially when in the agency days, that conversation is so often left out, and it's critical because that's what leads to disappointment. If we are building an app, if we are a non-technical person and commissioning an app that will help musicians publish their music, so completely reinventing your business, but if that's what we're doing, then we need to be then as a non-technical person, what we can do is we can use, have you heard of an idea of user stories? So what you can be very clear about is the things that you want your users to be able to do. So if we use this example, then I want to build an app. I've got 10k to build an app that I want to launch by the end of June, which, it doesn't need to be all singing, all dancing, but at bare minimum, it needs to, and then we list the features, it needs to allow musicians to sign up. So we've got just one user type for this, which is musician. It's never the case. Any business has lots of different users, but in this case, let's just say there's one user type and it's musicians. Then what we can do from a non-technical perspective is we can say, I want the user to be able to sign up. I want the user to be able to upload 3 tracks. I want the user to be able to edit and change those tracks. And so on and so forth. We're listing user stories. So a user story always starts with the name, and then there's a verb. So musician can upload, musician can sign up, musician can this. They are actions, and the verb is important, being very clear what the verb is, and you are listing the things, the user stories, the features that your app must have. You are not specifying how. You're saying, as a non-technical person, I know that a musician must be able to upload their tracks. Now, as a technical person, you're looking at that thinking, there are 500 different ways I can do that. I can make it the slickest, most elegant experience. I can have rolling engagement. I can do it mobile first so it flicks and there's one-touch upload. Or you're thinking, well, hang on, there's an off-the-shelf product that I know does upload. It's a bit ropey, but it'll get us to that point where they can upload. So that's where the discussions come on. We'll get onto that in more detail. It's about an understanding of what the features are, first of all, at this level, and then how those features are implemented, which is the next level. And so things go wrong when either the feature list isn't clear or there hasn't been a discussion on how those features are implemented. But it's always one of the, there's rarely an infinite number of reasons why things go wrong. It's either because the feature set wasn't clear or there's been a misunderstanding in how those features are implemented. And the assumption with Agile is that the features are the only things that can vary. So once we're building this app, and like I say, we've got all of these different features. So we're building a music app, we've got this much money and this much stuff. There's loads of things it could do, shed loads. It could allow them to upload the track and then social share it. It could allow them to have musicians nominate them stuff. It could link into the Brit Awards, so anytime it's automatically uploaded. There's loads of features, there's loads of things it could do, but because we have a set time and a set budget and a quality level we're aiming for, those features have to be variable. They have to be. And so the only thing that you manage under Agile are which features are going to get done how. So if we've only got 5K and we want by June, what we might be saying is, okay, what we need to do, the business cases, let's figure out if this thing works and if there's a demand for it. So we're not going out to mass market to create that problem. What we're saying is that the kind of the project is we want to build an app that will launch by June, which will test off 20 industry professionals for feedback. Because it's about setting the parameters. Because yeah, if your project is at full launch and we're doing this thing, then yeah, your quality level needs to be a lot higher. But quite often, you've only got that you can only deliver what your budget will allow. And these are the discussions that you have. Quality of a particular thing, it might be if your functionality isn't that complicated, and really what you're doing is there's nothing new here. This functionality, there's already 500 and there's thousands of apps that allow that. But they all look shit, then your quality level might be, well, we know the tech's really easy, we need to look awesome. So the quality discussion is about, yeah, okay, the most basic functionality, but we need to focus on the brand. Cool. Within that framework, so within this concept that we need to apply those principles and be collaborative and clear and iterate and think things through first before we get cracking and stuff. Within those principles, and on the understanding that there's only 4 things that we've got, budget, time, quality and features, and on the understanding that we're going to set the budget and the time and the quality at the front, what do we do? We've got a project, we're a non-technical person, we've got some money, we've got a deadline, we know what we want to do and we've got to contract someone. There are 3 things, 3 Agile techniques. The first one is the business case, and this comes back to exactly what you're doing. The business case is basically, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? So are we all right continuing this music app idea, just because it's quite a simple one. So what do we need to achieve by when, with an outline of solution, so that everyone understands why we're doing this. So this is the collaboration bit. So we're in our team, we bring a couple of developers in because we need their headspace in, so we're going to try and develop what we think the business case for doing this is. So we might say, we want to launch a minimum viable product, so version 1 of this app. We want to launch it to test basic functionality and assess market demand, and we want to do this by end of June. So that's a very, very basic business case. We want to start a project, and this project will allow us to launch a minimum viable product of this app so that we can test this basic functionality and see whether it's something people want. And we want to do that by the end of June. And what that means is, and again, the outline solution can vary in terms of what you want. If this is your business, you're probably going to have a rough idea of the other things out there in the marketplace. Don't be afraid to grab one of these and scribble your initial ideas down, because you can pussyfoot around not wanting to offend developers or designers, And depending on the attitude, if you sit down with a developer or a designer and you say, I've got some initial ideas, these are the market leaders, I kind of think it should work like that. Don't be afraid to do that, because if your designer or your developer tuts at you or rolls their eyes and gives the impression that this is my space design and you keep out of it, don't work with them. Don't work with them. You need to run Agile, a collaborative a collaborative relationship. You want them appreciating why you're doing that, because you are the ones that know your sector, you are the ones that know your audience, you are the ones that have been thinking and incubating this idea. Your designer or your developer partners are new to it, and if they don't respect that they cannot build a good product without your knowledge and experience and richness, they are not the right partner for you. Your best designers and developers will be giving you a pen and say, come on, what are your initial thoughts? Or they'll come with a questionnaire to try and extract that information, or they'll come and run a workshop with post-it notes, and they'll be trying to draw that information out of you. And if they're not, again, they're the wrong partner for you. So at this stage, when you're doing a business case, put an outline solution. So launch MVP to test basic functionality. So we're kind of thinking it'll be something like this. There'll be a really easy login. And then once they've logged in, we'll assume that they've got their tracks accessible. So we'll put, space for them to select 2 tracks and upload it. And we're assuming, because we know this marketplace, we want it working on the web and we want an iPhone app. That's the sort of thing we're thinking. So that is an outline solution. It's you using your knowledge and your experience and your initial early ideas and just sketching it out. And that is the first start of Agile. We've not spent hours or days writing a document, and we'll get more specific as we go on, or listing features. We've given a very clear budget, I'm not going to go into what SMART objectives are, because you probably already know, but ideally your business case should be SMART, should list all of the things. But you're being very clear about the purpose of what you're doing, and you're giving an outline solution in that document. And again, I've got a template for a business case. So I can share that with you, and you can use that as you want, because there's certain headings that you can go through. It's a 1 or 2 page document that you've thought through, refined, travelled with for a week or so, and got it down. So you're dead clear on what the business case is. And you cannot initiate or start to do anything more till you've done that. And again, sometimes when things go wrong, it's because it's your project. If you're initiating a project, if you are engaging someone to start a piece of work, or you are kicking something off, it is your project. You have the responsibility to do this thinking and get the business case clear first. That sounded a bit lectury, didn't it? But it's really because, again, things go wrong because this initial thinking hasn't been done, or people have shied out of doing this. So when they see the first set of designs back, they're like, that's not what I wanted. If you'd have just shared it up front, it gives you that confidence, and then you can have a discussion about it. Because what happens is when you sit down with the designer or the developer, they might be like, oh, right, yeah, okay, I built a similar app like that before, or yeah, actually, well, on an interface, it's not as easy to upload, so we'll do this. So you can start away. You're starting more useful conversations earlier on than if you're holding back your initial ideas. So again, I can share a template with you, and you can use that. Once you've got your outlining business case, it then becomes really interesting and really fun. Because we all know why we're doing this and what we're trying to achieve, you can move on to the next step, which is start to get a requirements list, a features list. These are the things that this project could do. So let's do this together. So this is, and often this is workshopped. So you get to the point where you're like this, like, great, do you think you can do this sort of thing for 10K by the end of June? To this kind of level of quality, so we'll do this. Yeah, great, let's go for it. Then you get your post-it notes out and you start saying, okay, in order to launch an MVP to test basic functionality and assess market demand, what could this thing do? I listed a couple, but let's go. Start shouting out all of the different things that this app could do. Don't hold back. Anything that this app could do. So it allows the musician to upload tracks. Yeah? What else could it do? Pardon? Announce gigs. Great. Yeah? Pardon? Buy tracks. Yeah. What else could it do? Share the tracks. Sell the tracks. Yeah?
Compare with other like music.
Yeah. Yeah. Artist news. Yeah. Pardon?
Set up playlists.
There's some basic stuff it needs them to allow them to log in. Does it maybe allow them to give feedback? And so on and so forth. You're really starting to delve in, because you've been clear about why you're doing this, then you always put the rule book down and you play with this, you play. We know what we need to do, let's think of all the different ways it could do it. And again, collaborate. So you're doing it with all of your rich knowledge and experience and understanding of your marketplace. You've got your designers and your developers with everything that they're bringing to the party, and you're playing. And nothing's wrong at this stage. There's no idea. Let this flow. Get all of the ideas down, all of the different things down that you could do. Like I said, I use this at Christmas. When I'm managing big family Christmases, I do this technique. Right, what can we do? How can we bring it in? Family holidays, great, Moscow it. So you end up with a massive list, and that list is called a requirements list. That's what it's called under Agile. And the next obvious step we want to do is we want to prioritize it. Because there's all of this stuff that it could do, what we need to do is we need to identify from this massive list, what is it that we need to do to deliver so out of those, what must we do in order to launch an MVP to test functionality and assess market users by June, which works something like this, and can be delivered within 10K. So there's a discussion to be had, because no one's got the answer to that question. All we've got is a clear business case and a list of ideas. Strictly speaking, these should all have a verb in, most of them do. Upload tracks, announce gigs, buy tracks, share tracks, sell, because they're user stories. These are things that people could do. So we'll just talk about musicians for now, so it's things that we allow musicians to do. So what we do to move from just this list of stuff to a prioritised requirements list, which we can then manage and contract, so we don't have two different people quoting on two different things, because that's what happens. If one quote is coming in at 25K and one's coming in 5K, they're quoting on different things. So we Moscow them. So Moscow, I'll do another sheet. We go through a process with Moscow. So we look at our big list and we take each requirement in turn and we say, okay, in order to launch an MVP that tests functionality and assesses market demand, which of these features, and we look at each of them individually, and we say, which of these features must we have? So without this feature in, we cannot achieve that business case. So which must we have, which should we have, which could we have, and which we won't have. So it's making you analyse and discuss, collaborate openly as a group, which of these features, which of these ideas we absolutely must have in order to achieve our business case. Because remember, with Agile, it's all about the business. This is a project for the business, not our personal tastes. We're not saying, well, yeah, but it must have sharing because I really like sharing. I think it's really important. It's not. We've identified a business case and we're assessing whether it must or should or could or won't have in order to achieve that business case. Sometimes in the discussion, we realise we have to change the business case, and that's fine, but we're not allowing personal preferences to slant things. So let's have a go at Moscowing this. So in order to launch an MVP that tastes basic functionality, which is allowing you bands to upload tasks, which must we have of these and what we could. So in order to deliver against our business case, must the musician be allowed to log in? Yes. Must the musician be allowed to upload tracks? Yeah? Must it be allowed to announce gigs?
Yeah.
So is it a could or a won't? Could. Now this again, really interesting, because what will happen, I guarantee it, is you'll get to the point like, could? There's no way that's a could, that's a should, because if they're not announcing gigs, what motivation is them to upload the tracks? So you start to get into these really rich, granular conversations that you just couldn't have got there, whatever. And that's where the true value comes in these, is the discussion and the collaboration around it. Must it, should it or could it allow users to buy tracks? The other thing with Agile, and why I started using it, because I'm bringing in different teams to do different stuff, and this is the reality of your businesses as well. At different times, different projects, you bring people, you don't necessarily know these people, but you want a way of getting to the cut to the chase very, very quickly, getting on the same page and having granular discussions. So at the end, you know exactly what you want. You're moving the idea forward all the time. But what you end up with is you end up with a prioritised Moscow. That is the basics of Moscow. So when I'm having a massive family Christmas, I'm like, right, in order, business case, I need to have a family Christmas that keeps me sane, keeps my mother happy, but also make sure I don't have to host next year. That's my business case. So I must have plenty of booze, because that's how we'll all get on. I probably should have turkey, but that's not what you do, but I'm up to debate, and if I don't get around to doing it, if I don't have booze, this is the define of the must. Can I achieve my business case of that family Christmas without alcohol? No, I can't. There is no way. Alcohol is definitely a must. Turkey, it's not a deal breaker. So what you'll end up with when you're doing this process, and it will happen, you are the procurer of services, you want as much money as you can for your money. Your provider, if they're the right provider, want to help you get the best you can, want to help you achieve your business case, but know realistically what's possible. You will be fighting for everything to be a must, they'll be fighting for things to be a could, and you'll agree somewhere in between. But it's those discussions in the process of Moscowing which are invaluable. So you end up with a clear list of things Moscowed. So you go through and you say, for my 10K, what we must have, Mr. Developer, is musician login, upload tracks, that one, all the things that are an M. For my 5K, if you deliver me a project that doesn't allow my users to do this, you failed. Responsibility shifts to the developer or the designer to do it. There is then the next level of discussion, which is separate, which is how we do this. So there are any number of ways with login, simple email only, or Facebook Connect, Twitter Connect, LinkedIn Connect, MySpace Connect, if such things exist. So then you can start to have a discussion. So you end up, if you imagine you have a column, lists all of the requirements, do them in order, so all your musts at the top, all your shoulds. Then you maybe have a column for tech notes. So then you discuss, you collaborate, you discuss with your developer, or they go off and they have a chat with their team and stuff and come back and say, all right, yeah, we can definitely do all of these. This is kind of how we'll do it. So there, you don't have knowledge for that. What you need to own as the project manager is these, because you know if it doesn't allow your user to do this and do this, you will not achieve your business case. You can't test the functionality. One of the things on there was, which I deliberately snuck in, was ability to give feedback. That is a must, because remember the business case, it was about testing basic functionality and assessing market need. If you don't have a feedback loop in, how are you going to do that? And again, 1,000,001 ways which you could do that. You might just have a really friendly line of text that says, again, honest wise hanger, hey guys, you're the chosen few. Please give me some feedback on this and your mobile phone number to keep it personal and real. That's a perfectly good way of allowing feedback. Or it could be a really complex plugin get satisfied. There's lots of ways we can do it, and you are demanding of your supplier their expertise and their feedback and their opinion on how they deliver. And then if you're comfortable that that's what they'll do to do this, bang, project's initiated, we're going. If someone's coming back here and they're quoting 5 grand versus 25 grand, it's because this hasn't been prioritised. So one of them is quoting on that all the way down to the coulds, and the other one's quoting on that. Or they're all quoting on the musts, but they're looking at very, very, very different ways of delivering on them. And depending on that quality level that you need, you don't, like I say on the feedback thing, there's lots of different ways of building functionality to allow users to give feedback. Those that are the most advanced might not be most appropriate for a very early version with 20 industry experts. So those discussions are really key. Very, 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 very quickly, what do we do next? You end up with a list of tasks. You end up with, we need to do this, the other. Say your project is 12 weeks long. Then what you want to do is to break that project down into sprints. And I'd suggest fortnightly sprints. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A sprint is a discrete piece of work which almost manages a mini project. Now, what you need to work out with your developers is what will happen at each sprint. So if it's a technical project, each of these should have some musts in, which must be delivered. So if for week 1, they're going to have the login complete, because that was a must, and they're going to have, yeah, and that's it. There might be a couple of other things, and maybe it's, homepage design. something like that. You give them 2 weeks. Your job as a project manager is to make sure that those things are done by that deadline. Do not let it slip. If you let it slip, your project will fail. That's the basic fundamentals of Agile. So if they get to this point and they're like, right dudes, I've got the login done, a musician can come to the site and they can log in. They can use their email and they can use the Facebook. Try to do the Twitter login, they've just changed the API, it's impossible. Can we move on? Yes, that's fine, because you have done the rudiments of login. The fact that there is a Twitter integration still to be done, you put onto the list and you try to slot it in and slate it down. You don't say, well, let's wait another week so you can do the Twitter integration. You finish on the deadline because you've done the musts, and then you move on to the next sprint. As soon as you start to let that slip, the project starts to snowball, it becomes more stressful, it gets more complex. So you put all of that, the different actions from your prioritised requirements into sprints, and at the end of each three sprints you have a Skype or you have a time meeting. There are various tools that you can use to manage these sprints, or you can just use a spreadsheet. I quite often will just use a spreadsheet and it does the job absolutely fine. You don't need to start using Jira or some of the complex stuff. That's the basics. It's called sprints or time boxing. It's the same thing. It's about breaking your project down into discrete areas of delivery, and for each discrete area of delivery have some very clear things that need to be done.